Now today we'll be replacing a lower ball joint, in this case on a 2010 Subaru Impreza. Now if you're not sure that you have a problem with the lower ball joint, I'll include another link in the description box below just showing on how I diagnose this is indeed the problem in this case. And that being said, I will just be using basic hand tools. If anyone out there has done this job and used a different technique, please leave those comments. Would love to read on how you guys are actually getting this done. Now once I have the tire off, what I want to do, right here is your stabilizer bar. So this is your tie rod, your ball joint is right here, and then you have your stabilizer bar. That's this guy right here. Now if you follow it, there's a bracket right here. So I want to remove, there's a 12mm nut in this case right there. So again, 12mm. Now sometimes if you can't remove these because it's too tight, just grab yourself another socket and an extension. I hope you guys can see this. And then place it over the end of the ratchet. And I apologize, the lighting here isn't good, but it's dark outside and I got a bunch of lights underneath the car, but maybe a little hard to see this. But this will give you extra leverage to remove these two bolts. Whoop. And one thing I should have done right off the bat, use some PB Blaster or WD-40. Will make your job a little bit easier. So I have both bolts removed, and then I have a bracket here with 1, 2, 3 14mm bolts. I'm going to remove this bracket. This will give us more free play so we could drop the suspension arm, which you will see exactly why we're doing this in a moment. So now right down here, there's a cotter pin, and we need to remove the cotter pin, and then there's a castle nut. So I just want to free up any loose dirt or rust. So again, here's your castle nut, and we just need to remove the cotter pin. So I just have a flathead screwdriver here. I just want to pry out the ends here. Let me grab my pliers, hold on. Okay, there we go. And of course, we will install a new cotter pin. In fact, it comes from Subaru. Now, there are a lot of different companies that make these ball joints. In this case, I'm just going with a factory Subaru part. This one lasted for 8 years, 128,000 miles. I think it's $5 more than an aftermarket part, so might as well go with OEM. And then on the opposite end, I'm just going to rotate this. Oh, it looks like it broke. That's all right. Make sure you guys can see this. Okay. And there you go. Okay, now we're going to remove this castle nut. Now to remove that castle nut, this is an 18mm socket, and I have a breaker bar. This makes the job incredibly easy. Again, you want a long handle to give you more leverage to remove these very tight bolts. Okay, here we go. One more time, and then we'll use a ratchet here. And of course, the ball joint also comes with a brand new castle nut. Okay, now we have one more bolt to remove, and that's right here. This is known as the pinch bolt. Now on these Subarus, they're very well known to actually snap off. If they snap off, then you have to drill out what's left over inside the housing. Now if that worries you, what you can use is a butane torch, for example. In other words, something like this. You know, if you're a chef, for example, and creme brulee is your thing, you would have one of these in the kitchen. With that being said, you can create a heat shield because you don't want to torch up your boot here for your drive line or your CV axle. Also make sure everything is so clean because obviously now you're dealing with a fire hazard. But you can give that technique a shot if you wish. I'm just going to try to remove this I'll spray some PB Blaster, let it soak for a little bit, and we'll cross our fingers. Hopefully it doesn't snap off. So again, I'm using a breaker bar, and this is a 14 millimeter. I really hope this doesn't break. I sprayed down PB Blaster. Actually, let me get a little bit more PB Blaster on top, and we'll rock and roll here. There's a little slit, so I'm hoping the PB Blaster sort of penetrates in between the slit. Okay, here goes nothing. Just going to take it nice and easy. Okay, looks like we're good. Let me see if I can, maybe a little bit more. Okay. Let me grab a ratchet. Now I'm going to use a very, very long screwdriver, which really the better thing, if you have one, is a long pry bar. Now unfortunately this is just the longest solid object I have that will fit in between this joint. So it's 23 inches in length. The longer the better. Again, if you can get a pry bar, that will also certainly work. So as it sits right now, this control arm is incredibly tight. In other words, it's really mounted on the ball joint. So I'm going to use that screwdriver, place it right here in between the lower control arm and where the pinch bolt was, and I'm going to just snap it down and break it from this mount. Now the other thing you could try, and you can rent this from your local auto parts store, is just a pitchfork. Now these you can also purchase online if you plan on doing your own auto repair, or again you could just rent it for nothing. As you can see, mine's a little beat up, but nonetheless it gets the job done. Now you do need a lot of strength to do this. You may want to try to exert as much of your body weight on the crowbar, or in this case on the screwdriver, and just put as much weight as you can. I can't stress that enough. These are incredibly tight. Alright, here we go. I'm going to stand up. Place it in between the joint here. Press down as hard as I can, okay? Here we go. There we go. Now as you can see, I was getting a lot of grease. It was making a mess everywhere, so I just cut the rubber off very quickly. I'm not sure if you can pick that up. But once I have the pinch bolt removed, I'm going to take a piece of wood and I want to drive down on this lower control arm so it pushes out. It's a very stubborn joint. You really have to push out the ball joint. So I'm going to grab a piece of wood and just hit it with a hammer, and hopefully it drives out the joint. Okay, here we go. We'll give it another hit. Okay. Now if you're curious on the type of wood we just used there, this is a 1x4 piece of pine. The length is almost 3 feet. Pine is very soft. So ultimately you can really use any wood you have lying around the house. 3-pound hammer, good solid wax, and you'll be in good shape. There we go. So there's the old ball joint, and we'll go ahead and install the brand new one. Now I just want to pause the video here for a moment. I cleaned this area with a wire brush off camera. Now you can also use a Dremel, for example, or anything you have just to clean out any debris, rust, whatever is in this section whatsoever. So here's the new ball joint. I just want to get it in there. Now what you want to make sure, as you can see, it's completely seated in the joint. So now I'm going to install the pinch bolt, and this is torqued to 40 foot-pounds if you want to use a torque wrench, otherwise just make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, here we go. So I do have a torque wrench, I'm just torquing it to 40 foot-pounds. Now we'll install the castle nut and wrap it up with the cotter pin. Now these are typically around 30 foot-pounds, nothing incredibly tight. Right there. And then I'm going to rotate it another 60 degrees and we'll insert the cotter pin. Now when you're ready to reinstall the brackets for the sway bars, as you can see, maybe a little difficult, but right there, there's an arrow pointing toward the front. So just make sure you install these brackets the correct orientation. And this is just some brake clean to clean off the rotor. As you can see, I have my marks on here.